Hey folks, I'm Chris and I'm your Commander Mechanic. But tonight I am your moderator for the Lost Caverns of Ixalan Commander Roundtable. Thank you for joining us and these fantastic guests to talk the latest set for Magic the Gathering. But also, we are going to be raising donations for a fantastic cause. We're working with Extra Life to raise donations for sick kids' children's hospitals. You can hit Command Donate in chat for a link to donate tonight. Anybody who donates in $5 increments will be entered into a draw that we're going to do at the end of the stream, where we'll be giving away Infinite Tokens prize packs, Lost Caverns of Ixalan Commander Precons, and more. Just a reminder for everybody, as we are already at a $60 threshold, our first prize, the Infinite Tokens prize pack, will open up when we hit $100, and then we'll be giving away a Lost Caverns of Ixalan Commander Precon at $200 and $300. So please help. This all goes to a fantastic cause. But of course, we are here to all discuss Lost Caverns of Ixalan. And I'm joined by an incredible panel, lots of new faces for tonight's round table. We're going to go around the table and introduce ourselves, starting with Misha. I want to ask you, who are you? Where can we find you? And where were you during the first trip to Ixalan?
All right. Well, hello, everybody. I am Magic Mishamigo. You can find me on pretty much all socials. I'm mostly on Twitter, Instagram. You can find me over on the VMLMTG Twitters, or not Twitter, Twitch, streaming sometimes. But yeah, that's who I am. I do cosplay. I play EDH. I play Limited. I just love Magic. But yeah, my first time with Ixalan, I actually wasn't playing Magic yet. So this is my first Ixalan.
Fantastic, fantastic. All right, well, we'll get your impressions as to what your first trip to Ixalan this time is all about. But we're also joined by Zabracus. Welcome. Why don't you let us know who you are, where we can find you, and where were you during the first trip to Ixalan?
Hello, I am Zabracus. I am so excited to be here. I am a content creator of all trades, so you can find me on all of your favorite social media networks, whatever they might be called. If I'm not there, just pretend I am anyway. It's cool. But I'm Zabracus everywhere. I do stream on Twitch, on whatnot. I'm also making I'm also a cosplayer who makes cosplays. Wow, words are hard.
Got this.
And I had something else to say and now I just completely forgot it. Doesn't matter. Okay, where was I during the first Ixalan? Well, just like Mishamigo, I wasn't playing Magic yet, so lost at sea, I guess. I don't know.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, once again, we'll find out what your first impressions of this plane are tonight. We also have the illustrious VeggieWagon with us too. Veggie, how are you, my friend?
Oh, I'm so illustrious right now.
Why don't you tell us who you are, where we can find you, and what were you doing during your first trip to Ixalan?
Wait, we've met. Don't you know these things?
Oh, my
Hi,
mind
everybody.
must be
I'm
blown.
VeggieWagon. I'm the co-host of your favorite Commander gameplay show, Decked Out, and sometimes I do funny things on the internet. Today I'm playing. Oh, sorry. I don't know. What other questions did you ask me?
Where were you during your first trip to Ixalan?
I think I don't know if I was playing at that point. Like I was in a break, but like I started getting back into Magic because Arena came out, and that was one of the first sets on there. So that is what I was doing, was like getting back into things really, and then never stopped.
Wow, fantastic. So Ixalan was one of your first reintroductions to Magic at the time.
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you for joining us. And of course, we are, as always, joined by my persistent co host for our roundtables, Claybee. Clay, why don't you let the rest of the audience know who you are, where we can find you, and where were you during your first trip to Ixalan?
Hi, friends. I'm Clay. I'm Claybee. I'm part of the C&C Power Hour, here co-hosting along with Chris. I guess technically I can say that I'm a cosplayer now after Gen Con, that I have in fact cosplayed a Magic character, but I wouldn't describe myself in that way, at least not yet. Hopefully, Magic Fest Chicago, we could roll a second or third one out, and then I can feel a little more, comfortable using that title. Otherwise, we do these roundtables where we raise money for good causes, have friends from the community on to talk about the latest sets. And you can find me on Twitter talking about a different deck idea like every 2 to 3 days, and all of the different Magic cards that I adore and find cute and want to break on Arena. And generally, once a month there's a new bug that I find on Arena, a way to rope myself while winning and then crashing the client. So that's always fun. What was the last question? So I was actually trying to look this up at this point, and the Chris that lives in my ear might be able to tell me, but I'm pretty sure their first visit to Ixalan, we were C&C was already streaming at that point. I think we were doing. Yes, thank you, Chris, in my ear. So we were streaming, doing limited in person in our studio at the time. So we were doing colossal dreadballing all the time, and so no, it's really fun and cool to go back. But this Ixalan was a cool, weird set with the four the typal focused set. It's a good time. It's good to be back.
Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. I like revisiting the plane. The first time we were here, Ixalan was a strange plane because a lot of the planeswalkers were locked onto it because of story-related shenanigans. So it's nice to explore it as its own kind of set here, or its own kind of plane here, its own story, as opposed to one that's weaved into a larger narrative. So I think that it's nice to have its own spotlight for once. And I'm excited to talk about it further with everybody. But we're just through the intros right now, and we're already almost at the $300 donation mark. Thank you, everybody out there. We had a massive donation from friend of the channel, Crab Baskets, with a big $130 donation. Thank you very much, my friend. How generous of you. But this means that we have already passed our first 2 thresholds. So we will be giving away an Infinite Tokens prize pack, a Commander Precon, and just now we've crossed our second threshold of $300, meaning we're going to be giving away a second Lost Caverns of Ixalan Precon as well. Thank you all very much for your generosity. We're going to continue pushing this too, and as we hit more thresholds, we'll be adding more prizes to the pool too. So thank you, everybody. Let's continue raising funds for a fantastic cause. But to the panel, let's break down Ixalan and visiting this plane for a second time. This set is taking a look at a very different flavor of the plane than we saw previously. We're going inside rather than ascending. And we're taking a look at the depths of Ixalan, the Lost Caverns, as it were. But because this is essentially a 4-faction set, I want to go around the table and ask all of you, what team are you? Are you team pirates, dinosaurs, merfolk, or vampires? Clay, we will start with you.
Can I first admit that I just realized the descend-ascend contrast? As you said that, I was like, oh my god, it never didn't click.
There's a reason why it's one of the questions for later.
It just did not click at all until right now, and then I just...
Amazing.
Fuck off, Chris. What did you ask me?
Are you team pirates, dinos, merfolk, or vampires?
Oh, so I'm like team dino friends. Like the dinosaurs are cool, but like I actually just like more so like the people that the Oltec and like those folks than like the dinosaurs themselves. If that makes sense.
Watley and her crew.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, awesome.
So
Cool. Veggie, are you team pirate, dino, merfolk, or vampires? Okay. Amazing.
So clearly, Team Vampire.
Does that hat make you the merfolk pope?
It does now. If you see bubbles escaping from like the chimney of the Merfolk Vatican, then you know that I've been chosen.
Yeah, white bubbles ascending from the vents of the sea. Right. Yeah. Okay, so you've made it very clear. Team Merfolk. How about Misha? What team are you? What faction are you? I didn't know that we were bringing props tonight.
Yeah, I'm team dinos. I was actually a little torn because when I realized that cats wasn't actually a team, I was like, oh, I guess dinosaurs is the closest thing to the cats. So yeah, we're team dino over here.
Fantastic. Zabracus, how about you? What team are you? Was everybody prepared with props?
My thing just happened to be on the desk. But team vampires forever, for life, for unlife.
Amazing. Wow. So I guess in order to round things out, I have to be team pirates here since we've got everybody else represented. So shiver my timbers. We're doing some looting tonight. So with that being said, we this is our second time to Ixalan, and the second time we've seen this 4-faction structure, where normally where we're on planes, we see more of a 5-faction structure representing shards or wedges or color pairings. But Ixalan really seems to be unique in this way. How do you feel about this being an atypical setup in terms of the distribution of themes throughout the set? Does 4 factions work, or do you prefer the 5 factions? Zabracus, let's start with you.
I think 4 is fine because I mean, 4 people in a commander pod is just right. And you know, the 5th person, whenever there's a 5th, you know, they're just the odd person out, and you have to kill them first. So 4 factions definitely is the best way to go for that reason alone.
Yeah, and I think that raises a fantastic point. This means that for decks, we've got 4 precons with this set too. That's perfect for commander. It means everybody in the pod can get a different one, and there's no leftover precon. There's no lower selling precon. I wouldn't be surprised if we see all of these be split pretty evenly in interest. But Misha, how do you feel about the 4-faction structure? Is this one that
And
you
these
feel
precons
works?
are beautiful.
Yeah, I like it for those exact same reasons that, you know, when you do a pod, it's usually 4 people. So having 4 precons, 4 factions works. I also love that there's also a bunch of sub factions. Like I already mentioned, I love cats. There's a lot of cat support in this set. There's also funguses. I'm a fan of a good fungi. So I love that there's a bunch of, you know, sub options if you want to build your own commanders too.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think that's a great point. These 4 factions aren't the only ones that we're seeing on the plane. So there is plenty of options for building what you want, as opposed to just the ones that are the 4 pushed factions here. Clay, how do you feel about this setup, this 4-faction setup?
I think in general it works in Ixalan, but I'm glad that it's not like the norm. Like I in general, I think that 5 works better, especially when you're trying to like kind of juxtapose like the factions across like the colors to make sure that things are equally like distributed. but like them doing like, okay, the dinosaurs are 3 colors and then 2 and 2 and 2. Like it works here, and I dig it for this, especially story parts. But like in general, I don't know that I would want to see it too frequently. So I guess I'm glad that it makes Ixalan also feel more special and unique, right?
Fantastic point. Misha?
I just a quick question, because it's I know about the dinosaur commander and the pirate commander, but are the other 2 commander decks, because the pirates is actually 3 colors as well, it's Grixis, are the other 2 just 2 colors?
Both 2
They are.
colors.
No.
Sorry?
I have them here. Sorry.
It's evenly represented, all colors, even with the only 4
Pirates is
factions.
also 3.
Yeah, I
Pirates and Dinos.
Yeah.
I did
3.
misspeak.
Right. But the merfolk and
And
vampires
2
are
and 2.
2 colors, and across all 4 decks, each color is represented twice.
Okay, I just
So
I wasn't super familiar, so I just wanted to double check that.
Yes.
yes. So despite there being 4 factions, each color is represented evenly, which is really interesting. Welcome, Raiders. By the way, Benji the Brewer is raiding us with a team. Welcome, everybody, to the Commander Roundtable for Lost Caverns of Ixalan. If you are new and joining us here, we are raising donations and raffling off prizes at the end of the stream. You can hit Command Donate to donate in $5 increments to Extra Life and Sick Kids Children's Hospitals. And we'll be doing a raffle at the end of the night for everything from Infinite Tokens prize packs to Commander Precons. We've crossed our $350 threshold, meaning at least we're giving away 1 Infinite Tokens prize pack and 2 Commander Precons. So if you keep being generous, we'll see how much more we'll be giving away at the end of the stream. Thank you all for joining us. And lastly, but not leastly, Veggie, how do you feel about the 4 faction breakdown for Ixalan?
I mean, we've talked a lot about like commander and just like color representation, but it makes for an interesting dynamic for draft because you have some there's certainly like creature matters themes throughout all of the different groups on Ixalan, but typically you're drafting like 2 colors. So that means it's going to be easier to draft like merfolk or vampires than it is to draft the ones that are spread across 3 colors. Not only because you are then like tempted to go into 3 colors in your draft, which is tougher, but also you have probably somebody else, even if they're not your exact like 2 colors, that somebody else in your pod that's like pulling away some of your monocolored creatures. And so I'm interested to see how that plays out in like in reality, because I didn't really get to draft a lot of the original Ixalan, but from what I've heard, it was not as popular as some of the other sets for that. So maybe that's a contributing factor, but I don't know.
Well, looking forward to seeing how this does play out, but some fantastic points there. Yeah, with these shared colors across the factions here, it means that there's going to be more demand on those overlapping colors too. Great. I know I'm grateful for the 4 faction structure, because it means that there are only 4 commander precons instead of 5, which means I only have to do upgrades for 4 decks rather than 5. So a little less work for me. I appreciate that greatly. Is it the next question up is it odd to return to Ixalan with the exact same factions in the exact same structures that we had during the original Ixalan? I know that we have a few members of the roundtable that weren't here during the first Ixalan or weren't playing during the first Ixalan, but does this work in your mind the way that it does on Ravnica, where we return to the guilds and we have the same color pairings and the same factions with the same ethos? Does that work on Ixalan, where we're returning to pirates who are doing the same thing, merfolk that are doing the same thing, vampires that are doing the same thing? Does it play the same way it does on other returns to the same plane? Clay, how do you feel?
I think it does, but I think it's aided by the fact that we got the peek at Ixalan during March of the Machine and the story, and so it feels like a really natural progression of like with when we were like in Ravnica originally, and then Ravnica the second time, and then Ravnica the third time. It really felt like there was like a lot of time that passed between those, right? People who were like lower in the guilds, now it's like an assistant to the guild, or now they're the head of the guild. And whereas with Ixalan, it really feels like we were there, or the spark happened, March of the Machine happened. Like it feels very recent, right? And we saw the effect of Phyrexian invasion on Ixalan, and now we're in like the natural progression of that, right? Okay, so Omen paths have started, and now there's something at the center of the earth underneath the ground, and so like, but it still feels very recent, so it feels natural that we'd have roughly the same characters. Kind of like, I don't even know if enough time would have passed for them to get back to, like, for the vampires to get back to Terrazon, for example, or something like that. Like, I don't know how long that sailing voyage takes. They might have still been stuck there, still like rebuilding after the Phyrexians and stuff. So I think it works, or at least it didn't feel weird, like going through the story and
Gotcha.
looking at the cards.
Fantastic point. Zabracus, how do you feel? Is it strange to be on a return to plane with factions that isn't like Ravnica, for instance, where we had those very defined two-color sets or two-color terrains?
I mean, I feel like it makes sense just as a world building standpoint, whatever the right word is, that like if you go to like this place in existence, these were the things that are there. And then when you go back to it, it makes sense if those are the things that are there, right? Like different planes have different things. And so I don't know, in my brain, story-wise and just cohesionness wise, it makes sense to just stick with the same ones and just make even more crazy cool things happen within the same ones. But yeah.
Fantastic. Veggie, how do you feel? Does it make sense to return to the same factions doing the same things?
I mean, it makes sense. But I think it's interesting that they would choose to make it so similar when they just had like the smash hit of like Kamigawa, which was a return to and drastically different.
Yeah.
And that has been that I think pretty universally is held as like just they knocked it out of the park on all accounts. And so I'm surprised they wouldn't go for something similar where they just take whatever people liked from before, but then give it a drastically different spin.
Yeah, I think that's a great point too. Seeing some of the most recent sets like Neon Dynasty, like the All Will Be One, and the Phyrexian Invasion, where we saw things like team up cards really shake things up, and we saw characters that wouldn't normally be of the same faction intermingling to fight off the Phyrexian threat. That to me would have been a perfect point to shake things up a bit and maybe have colors break off of one faction and join another one, or see a little bit of a shakeup, and maybe the two-color factions become three-color factions. Maybe red falls off of pirates and joins vampires to become Mardu, right? Or we have white fall off of dinos and join merfolk to become banned. That would have been a great pivot on this, where we see the same four functions but see them in different color combinations with different mechanics and different things to do. I think that this would have been a great opportunity for that. Misha, how about you? How do you feel about revisiting these factions? How do you feel about revisiting a plane and seeing the same things from the same factions again?
I was actually going to make a similar draw to Kamigawa because that was one of my favorite new sets. And, I never played the original, but I loved Neon Dynasty. Amazing. But I was going to say it's kind of nice to see, like, there's so much change that's been happening with a lot of the more recent planes we've been to, big wars, big things going on, changes from, the older sets to now, that it's kind of nice to just have a same, like, time has passed, things have changed, but not everything has to change on that plane. You can have a little bit of that same kind of stability and just keep going with those same factions. I do like your idea, however, of maybe some of those color pieces rearranging. It made me think of, like, what is it, the Mavrin and Galta? Mavrin's a vampire, right? Like, I like some Mardu stuff going on there. That sounds like a good time. What if the vampires start taming some dinosaurs? That could be a fun overlap.
Absolutely. Hey, maybe we see it on the next return to Ixalan. Is we see some shakeup here. Clay, you've got something to add.
Yes. So I had like the two. The one is that I'd be really interested as far as like shaking up the factions. It's kind of a spoiler if you haven't read the story, but I feel like the next time we go to Ixalan is going to be very different with the and like it's going to take place in a very different area with them taking the Akalotl, the Bat God, back to Terrazon and going forward with this. Like we're gonna get to see a whole different part of Ixalan the next time we go back. So I'm really interested to see where those factions change or evolve in a new setting. And then the second was with the Neon Dynasty mention. Did they announce or did I hallucinate that they are looking at doing a Neon Dynasty style thing for like Lorwyn? Wasn't that one of the things that they talked about?
Yeah, that was hinted at. Yeah.
Okay, and so that's where, that's where I like the contrast of we just did all of these radical changes and we've melded a lot of different things and a lot of different stuff has interacted that hadn't previously. The world or the multiverse threatening invasion just happened. Here's a nice little self-contained heist story going to the center of the earth, and it's like a little comfort food, and then we're gonna get Outlaw Junction, and we're gonna get the Markov Manor, and we're gonna get all this. But there's this like I really love the like kind of comfortable like, hey, this is just the journey to the center of the earth motif and doing this stuff, and it's just self-contained, and it's the characters that we loved the last time getting to do the things that we know that they do with Quintorius and some other friends. But like I don't know, it's an interesting thing. I want to see how they evolve it the next time. But coming off of especially March of the Machine, it feels nice to have something familiar, like self-contained.
Yeah, I think that your point about comfort food is on point here because yes, we just had this massive plane shattering, multiverse spanning storyline wrap up. So it's nice to come back and see that some things haven't changed as much on some planes, even though they are touting a lot of these sets now and into 2024 as being see the fallout of the Phyrexian invasion. It turns out there's very little fallout, which isn't always a bad thing. You brought up Quintorius though, Clay. I want to divert from script a little bit here. How great is it to see Quintorius with Spark on this plane? Is that fantastic? Is everybody else as excited for that as I am? Yeah. Is everybody familiar with Quintorius from Strixhaven and the Strixhaven story? Yeah. Best boy Quintorius.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm so glad that he's got his spark, and I'm so glad that he's able to live his best life exploring and being a planeswalking archaeologist.
As happy as I am for Quintorius, I am more happy, and I don't know, maybe you were going to ask this later, and I'm jumping the gun, that Huatli and Saheeli are in fact on the same plane, because when Wizards was like, hey, lots of people have lost their spark, and we don't know who's going to be a planeswalker and who's not. I was on this round table after that yelling that if they were not together, I was going to riot. And so I'm just glad we didn't end up having to like go that far, take it to that level of extreme. Glad that they're together. Also, yeah, no, like it's nice to have new face Quintorius get to be one of the people to keep the sparks. So kind of leading the charge forward in the next chapter of the story. Love to see him. Glad that he didn't just disappear into the ether, which was like the art on that one spell from where he was like, "Oh no, I'm worried about the boy."
Yeah. Misha, you had something to add as well.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, prior to Strixhaven, had we met Quintorius? Just since okay, so
Yeah, he brand new character as of Strixhaven.
that seems perfect for a Lorehold professor to be able to, go around and explore it.
Absolutely. Again, like I think that this is ideal circumstance. There are so many planeswalkers where getting their sparks are such a tragic story and such a tragic motivation for the character. This is joyous for Quintorius. Quintorius gets to explore, which is exactly what he wants to do. Clay.
If I remember correctly, so Quintorius, the fact that one of the 5 students that we were introduced to was thought to have a spark, and that was what brought Casmina and Liliana to Strixhaven, is that they thought that there was this potential, which however that works, however they identify this potential spark, who knows?
Midichlorians.
Midichlorians.
I was
yeah,
literally
totally.
about to say that.
And so it was very interesting, like going through Strixhaven, because at that point, even at the end of that set story, we still didn't know, right, who was the one that was going to spark.
Zabracus, how do you feel about Quintorius getting a spark, getting to live his best Indiana Jones life?
I mean, it brings me so much joy. I'm not as familiar with the details of the story, but I know loosely enough. And he's just like this happy little elephant boy. He probably has a proper title, and I'm sorry I don't know it. It's so fun.
Oh.
And like, as a kid who wanted to be an archaeologist and then never followed through with that dream, I feel like I can live that.
Sorry, cutting in and out there just a bit.
Did my thing, Luke, cut out?
Yeah, just at the tail end, as somebody who wanted to be an archaeologist, and then you cut out.
Gotcha. As someone who, when they were little, wanted to be an archaeologist and then never actually followed through with that dream, I feel like I'm living vicariously through Quintorius as they live that dream for me.
Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to Quintorius and seeing him pop up on other planes too, just to be able to be that archaeology expert that pops in from time to time. Like an almost a where in the world is Carmen Sandiego, but it's Quintorius.
What if we got Quintorius on Kamigawa and then got like Kanda or Michigo, like conversation with past legendary creatures? That would be wild, like getting to interact with those spirits
that have
like
been around for thousands of years and can actually recount the history of a plane. Yeah, I think that's very interesting. Like, that's a hook for you right there. Veggie, how do you feel about Quintorius living best exploration dreams?
Well, I know that Clay, you had mentioned like you were glad that he didn't just like poof out of existence, like lore wise. I'm also very glad that he just didn't poof out of existence, like as far as like Wizard's attention, because like this could have been it was like, oh, that story could theoretically have been done at that point, and then it's like, all right, well, we're going somewhere else, and now we're gonna go right back to our like our set of like 5 planeswalkers that we go to. So now it's like, okay, they're continuing Quintorius' story, and maybe that means that we have a new planeswalker that we like that is like in the rotation. So that's I'm happy with that.
Love it. Misha.
That just made me think, do you think Quintorius and Kellen might even match up now that we have Kellen on his second plane and they have sparks? Like, do you think that might be some of the new like big 5 or whatever? Quintorius, Kellen, and some yet to be seen?
Yeah, I think having some of these characters be through threads through some of these planes is really interesting because we have some with sparks and some without. Now that characters that don't have sparks can cross planes, I think it's really interesting that we can end up seeing some of these characters that wouldn't normally be on a plane, and we might get this adventuring party eventually that is, Quintorius and Kellen and a few others that are just romping from plane to plane to plane adventuring. I think that that'd be very interesting, especially if we end up with, like, say, these two color pairings, Quintorius being red white, Kellen being red green. If we end up picking up more of these two color pairings, then there's potential for a whole new Breakfast Club worth of characters here.
Incorrect MTG quotes is already calling them Omen Pals.
Ah.
Like for the group.
Love it. Well, hopefully we'll see this new cast of characters crop up and maybe see this as a new through thread through the planes that we'll be visiting, because we know each set coming up is going to be a different plane. So it'll be interesting to see who we pick up along the way. So back to overall Ixalan flavor here. Is the inside of Ixalan as exciting as the outside of Ixalan now that we've seen both? Is the race to the bottom as exciting as the race to the top? Veggie, how do you feel?
I mean, I think it's significantly better. I don't know, because I was coming back into Magic around the original Ixalan, but this the insides feel so much more developed, like than the outside. I don't know if it's just me, but like it felt pretty generic, like the first time around, and now this is like deep.
Because it's like real geology.
right. It just feels like there's so many more of these like little details that are either fleshed out or just like something fascinating, like so many different cards and arts. I'm like, that's like a whole story in itself, and I want to know more about that. And the first time around, it was like, oh, okay, yeah, like I get it, but it didn't feel as full as this.
Fantastic points. Yeah, I think that is very, very relevant with how deep the set gets, for sure. Misha, how do you feel? I know this is your first time visiting Ixalan, but how fleshed out do you feel that the inside of Ixalan is now that we've done this depth dive?
Yeah, I was going to say, I missed the Ascent, but, there's some noteworthy dinosaurs I can remember from that. But for me, this is just a lot more fleshed out. Like, you're getting the gods, you're getting the history, you're getting new history, you're diving deep into the ground, you're getting the mushrooms. For me, it's just, there's so much story to be had here, and story that I think I'm going to remember a little bit more. I love the dinosaurs, but now I'm going to remember even more the gods, the cats, the fungi. I'm going to remember them all.
Fantastic. Yeah, definitely some memorable characters in this set too. A lot that people are already identifying with, which is fantastic. Clay, how do you feel about the inside of Ixalan versus the outside?
I think it's cool. I think that what Veggie was talking about with like it feels more fleshed out. I think it's representative of, and we kind of keep coming back to it with the Kamigawa and like Neon Dynasty. But like getting to listen to the art design or director and the story and like the work that they put into as far as making sure that they were, doing this culture justice and like pulling from all of these different real world inspirations and doing all this stuff. It just feels like a lot more work was put into that flavor. And the depth of the world, and I think that that's reflected by how everybody is resonating with it. And I was somebody who loved the flavor of Ixalan the first time I went. Like I loved all of that, but I think that was more like Alison Fair's story or Alison Lure's story at the time, and then that I don't know. It feels like the standard then was a lot lower for world flavor and stuff than it is now. And I think that the inside of Ixalan has matched that, and just super cool.
I definitely think in large part that's chalked up to Magic art director Ovidio Cartagena and his passion for this setting and this culture as well, bringing a lot of life, bringing a lot of accuracy to it. It's great to return and see this setting do a lot of justice from people that are passionate about it and are hands-on with it. Zabracus, how do you feel about the inside of Ixalan? Do you feel that we got enough to sink our teeth into?
I agree with everything that everyone's saying. That similar to a TARDIS, it's just bigger on the inside. And there's just so much more that we're learning about Ixalan, and just so many more fun new mechanics. I cannot speak tonight. Mechanics.
Hi, I'm your commander,
Comanic. Yep. Made that mistake before.
But yeah, everyone's pretty much hit on it. There's nothing I dislike about it. Delving deeper into the world and the lore of Ixalan.
Amazing. Well, I definitely hope that we get a chance to come back here as well. And last bit before we tie up the flavor of the set and the plane, Clay hinted at this earlier, but aren't Watley and Saheeli just the cutest couple on this plane? Much like Clay, I'm so glad that they've ended up on the same plane, even if they've both lost their sparks. At least they get to be on the same plane together, and you see them working together. I think that it's absolutely fantastic. This poetic ingenuity is exactly the card that I was going to reference. It's amazing to see these two together. I couldn't be happier. How do we feel about this pairing? Is this like the OTP for everybody here? Yeah.
Yeah. I also like.
Perfect.
It is sad that they've lost their sparks, but if any, it feels like I don't know, like a more peaceful, like they get actual time to like be together, as opposed to, oh well, we have this responsibility to travel the multiverse and fix things. Now it's like, oh, we can just exist.
Yeah, it really does feel like, hey, we can settle down and be together now. And honestly, that's the best that I could hope for these two characters. Misha, you had something to
I was just going to say, it's like Planeswalker retirement. They, go back, they're settling down. They get to have the slow, easy, well, maybe not easy, but a slower, simpler time together.
Making mechanical dinosaurs on Ixalan? I couldn't think of something better.
Yeah.
That's how I want to spend my retirement, making mechanical dinosaurs.
Agreed.
I was just gonna say, yeah, the flavor of Saheeli just devoting all of her like filigree crafting now, right? She's like made all of these wild things. She made like helped make that like the Silex for the story, and I was like doing all these things, and I was like, yeah, but what if I made Dinobots? Look how really, really cool. Like, and it's just like, oh yeah, no. Babe, bring more of your friends and I'll make sculptures of them, like make them friends. I don't know.
Yeah.
Even just the flavor text on that card that's showing up on stream right now, like it's perfect.
Right.
Love to see it. Zabracus, how do you feel about these two? Super cute.
They are absolutely precious, and I love that Wizards is leaning into like canonical representation of relationships like this. That before, in the olden days, it was like assumed that these things were happening, but they never really made it a part of the cards or the story. And now they are. Like it is just there, and it is. I love.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic to see.
Out again.
We caught that. That was great. But yes, the representation here is fantastic. And I think it's super cute that it's just like Saheeli now wants to make origami dinosaurs for her girlfriend. I mean, like, I couldn't ask for anything better for these characters, for sure. Amazing. So we're going to start talking about some of the mechanics and some of the more in-depth on-card bits here in a second, but I want to remind the audience of a few things. One, we are still raising donations for Sick Kids Children's Charities. We are past the $360 donation mark right now, just about an hour into or halfway through our roundtable. Thank you, everybody, for your generosity. But if you do want to donate in $5 increments, we will be doing a raffle at the end of the stream, and we'll be giving away Infinitokens prize packs. And right now, 2 Caverns of Ixalan Commander precons. So please continue to support this fantastic cause. Sick Kids Children's Hospitals definitely appreciate all of your support. Thank you so much. And then the second thing is we will be doing Q&A at the end of the roundtable too. I know that I've seen a few users out there redeem the Ask a Question channel point redemption. It's just a single point to do that. But if you can do that, then it means that we can see your questions at the end of the night. So if you have anything that you want to ask of the illustrious panel here, please do as Claybee does in chat there. All right, amazing. All right, so digging into the more finer points here of what these cards do, we blew Clay's mind earlier with the parallels between Ascend and Descend. So I want to ask you, how do we feel about that? Does it work with Descend being almost kind of like a Threshold with extra steps, but does it work as a parallel to Ascend, which needed 10 permanents in play from the original Ixalan? We've seen Ascend on a few cards outside of Ixalan as well. But how do we feel about this? Does this work mechanically? How do you feel that this works mechanically? Zabracus, any thoughts on this?
I mean, until I play a lot of the mechanic, I won't fully know if I like it or not and what I fully think about it. But just thinking about it and theorizing how it will work, I prefer Ascend to Descend, just because, you know, as soon as you have 10 permanents on the board, today you have the City's Blessing. It's there forever, especially after a board wipe. You still have the City's Blessing. But with Descend, you know, it has to be every turn you have to descend X amount of whatever the card says. And, you know, there's just going to be a lot of times when you don't have the permanents to get rid of somehow to achieve the things on the cards. And it's just going to be a lot more difficult. Or maybe that's just me, because I struggle with these things working properly anytime I want them to. But yeah, I've never really played a Threshold card, so I don't fully know how that compares.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of Descend. Like, I love the flavor of it. It's great. I just wish it was closer to Ascend in the way that it was more like a permanent feature versus every single turn.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastically fair point there too. Ascend is just you have ascended one time and you are permanently ascended. Descend, you have to continue to keep track of it, and it can change if somebody exiles your graveyard, for instance. So those are all points working against it too. Clay, how do you feel about this? I know you're looking forward to playing this with the new set.
Yeah, so I think in general, I like it. I think that it functions as a good kind of mid to late game power up mechanic in the same way that Ascend did, right? Where like at the beginning, it's not doing anything, especially in limited. Once you get to like this point, you've got the 10 permanents, then the 1-drops. Like there was the like the 03 dinosaur that I played so much of, like Snubhorn Ceratops or something like that, was like a 1-drop in white in the original Ixalan. I love that little guy. But like, yeah, Snubhorn Sentry. There we go. I think the biggest issue for me, as far as wrapping my brain around Descend, and maybe it'll be easier in game, is the fact that there's Descend and then Descended. So there's a bunch of cards that just care about, are there X number of these permanents in your graveyard at that time? And then there's cards that are like, did you descend to this turn? Then you get like another thing. And I think having both sides of that being tied to the same mechanic is confusing and will and just kind of makes it a little harder for me to wrestle with the mechanic in my brain. I do like it better than Threshold in that it cares about permanence when it's caring about how many are in your graveyard, because Threshold always felt too easy to me. Unless somebody wiped your graveyard, it's like, do you have 7 cards in your graveyard? Congrats, you get whatever that benefit is. It doesn't matter if it's like Evolving Wilds or Instants and Sorceries, like whatever, like cool, go off. And it's like, so I like that there's like a little bit more of a barrier to it, but I'm also a known graveyard hater, so like that makes sense. But no, I think in general I like the way that it represents this kind of like mid to late game power mechanic in the same way Ascend did. And I think it'll be cool. I am curious though to see how the payoff on the cards that trigger every turn or on your each time, if those really feel incrementally cooler and stronger as the game goes on, or if it's like, all right, this is just annoying to track.
I think that
or hard to activate.
Those are great points too, and we'll talk a little bit more about descending or descended just after this as well, because I've got some feelings about that. But Veggie, it looked like you had some pretty strong feelings about Threshold and the comparison to Threshold here.
What gave you that idea? I
the
no
fact that you
on...
really lost your Merfolk Pope hat. Well, agreeing.
This mechanic, like in a bubble, I like much better than Threshold. Like, or I guess is much more balanced than Threshold, because Threshold was like you could get 7 cards in your graveyard, no problem. It just happens, and then if you built something around it, it was like, cool, I played one thing, suddenly 7 cards, and the payoffs were pretty good. And I definitely like this more because you have to build in a certain way to make sure that you can get actual permanence into your graveyard. But it's still that like you still feel good about like accomplishing it, because it's both like the build that you've done and the game actions you've taken to get there. It does serve that like limited purpose of, you know, a mid to late game power up. But I'm also, you all tell me if I am unique in this experience, but I feel like everyone has to be told the ascend descend like connection, which seems super obvious when you like know it. You're like, oh, of course, like that they're doing the ascend descend thing. I got it. But like I don't know anybody that like got there by themselves. They just had to be told. They're like, oh, so I don't know if that means that it's a good callback.
Mm-hmm. It's almost like a Mandela effect thing where like you don't notice it until somebody brings it up the first time, and then it's the only thing that you can think of. Clay.
I do think that it's like part of that is the fact that it's Ascend was a mechanic from one plane 6 years ago that we haven't really gotten to see very much. Whereas like if we had more frequent City's Blessing cards and stuff, then it would be an easier callback for people to make. Whereas like if they had done a spinoff on Explore, like Explore has been more prevalent since last time we were in Ixalan, for example. But it is very weird that moment it's revealed and you're like, oh. So it's like I think whether or not like the naming it's cute, I don't know that it matters as much as the callback, as it's like an effective limited mechanic and can be a cool thing. But yeah, no, that was weird. I mean, you saw I almost died laughing the moment. I was like, holy shit, I've been looking at this set nonstop for the last 3 weeks and it never clicked. That's embarrassing.
Yeah, definitely one of those light bulb moments. We got to see it live on stream, that light bulb go off over your head. But Misha, how do you feel about the descend mechanic? Is this something that's easier to keep track of, harder to keep track of? And did you get to play with the original ascend mechanic at all?
So I have a couple commander decks that have ascend cards in them, and I definitely think that ascending is way easier to keep track of. Count to 10, you're good. You've got it the rest of the game. Easy peasy. Descend, there's a little bit more of a nuance to it. There's kind of like you said, descending, depending on the card, you have to figure out how many times you've descended a turn. Myco Tyrant is a big one for that, like just making sure, and also another thing that I didn't catch it at first, it wasn't until I saw something on Twitter where it cares about cards leaving the battlefield, not tokens. So if you have tokens leave the battlefield, that does not count toward your descent count for that turn. And I was just like, oh, I definitely would have misplayed that if I had not seen a tweet about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it's going to be a little tricky. I think there are probably going to be a lot of misplays with it in pre-release and maybe even going forward. But I do think it's a really cool mechanic. I like that you do have to keep track of it per turn, but then you can just kind of count the permanents in your graveyard for descended and. Yeah, so I think it's gonna be fun. I like it. I do think it will be a bit tricky though.
Mhm. I agree, and I think the big break in parallel between ascend and descend is that the original mechanic just counted permanents in play. It didn't care whether it was token or non-token. With descend having to be permanent cards in your graveyard and descending having to be permanent cards leaving the battlefield means that tokens don't count towards it. So it's not a perfect parallel. I think that it's like you said, it's going to be one that on pre-release people are going to pop a treasure token and think that they have descended. I think that that's going to be a big thing that's coming up here. And in terms of the parallel between ascend and descend, keeping track of permanent cards in graveyards versus just overall cards in graveyards, I think that that is extra bookkeeping that needs to be done because spells aren't going to count towards it. So you're going to have to keep asking, I see you've got 10 cards in your graveyard, but do you have those 6 permanent cards in your graveyard? I think that when a mechanic needs to rely on more bookkeeping like that, it's not clear for everybody, especially if you're at a 4-player table and you're playing descend in commander and oh, I didn't realize that creature had +6/+6 because you have 8 permanent cards in your graveyard, right? I think that's going to be an issue. Lots of thoughts on this. Veggie, please.
I just I wonder what a more direct connection to ascend would have looked like for the graveyard. Like, what if it was, hey, once you've got 10 permanents in your graveyard, you get the Undercity's blessing, like that.
Yeah, we're not going to the dungeon,
right? Because I'm sure that's probably where they started with it, and I wonder what stopped it from being a more direct connection.
Yeah,
because like it feels like that would just work, but
yeah, if instead of the city's blessing, you had the chorus curse or something like that, and it'd be one of those. As long as you have X amount of permanent cards in your graveyard, you have obtained the curse, and it counts for all descended cards. I think that would have been a more one-to-one parallel. But Misha, you've got.
I was just wondering because if it is similar to Ascended, where once you have it, you just have it. How would it work with graveyard exile? Like, do you have to get to 10 before your graveyard's exiled? Otherwise, it doesn't count. Would it count cards in exile if they were exiled from your graveyard? Or I guess in some ways, how would those type of effects matter versus? Well, I guess it is similar to Ascending because if you don't have 10 permanents on your battlefield, then you still can't ascend.
Right, and once you have ascended, it doesn't matter whether those cards on the battlefield are on the battlefield anymore. You just have that, and that's it. Right, Clay, you had something to add too.
No, not necessarily. I was more just like still reeling over the fact that I hadn't registered on specifically the cards with the descended, calling out that it was a permanent card, not just a permanent. And I would love to hear from playtesting why it ended up being permanent card. Because I would be willing to bet that originally it was a permanent hiss at the graveyard, and that then something either is broken or there was some issue there that it was, or it might be bookkeeping. Just it's harder to remember how many food tokens got sacrificed this turn or something. So having it be permanent cards that you can physically see, even if you're just like setting them to the side of the graveyard over the course of the turn to keep track of. I would just that's one of those like pull back the curtain kind of stories that I'm always curious about. You know, when you see a card templated a certain way and you're like, huh, that's not the normal way they do that. I wonder what breaks if this looks like other cards in that in a similar vein.
Are there any cards that care about how many times you have descended in a turn? Because like my assumption would be that like it was just really way too easy to Ooh.
Myco Tyrant cares about how many times you have descended in a turn.
Okay, there we go.
And it makes tokens when you've descended, however many times you descended. So I think maybe this one card alone could get broken if you sacrifice a ton of permanents, make a ton of permanents, and keep sacking them. So
yeah, it is like an end step trigger. So like you kind of have to go to your like you make a bunch of fungi and then like go to your next turn and then make the same number of fungi. Like, you know, there's or I guess with like Pitiless Plunderer, then you could like double the number of times, double the number of fungi. Again on your end step. Yeah, I'm wondering. I'm just curious. I would love to know what they're doing.
Even if you have a doubling season, you sack a bunch of them, and then the next turn you get twice as many coming back. Like that's a little crazy.
Yeah, this is a set that does have treasure generation in it too. So like that alone is easy enough to trigger descend if you are carrying about just permanents rather than permanent cards here too.
Honestly, treasures need the help though. Really,
yeah, right,
I mean, right? Like
exactly.
Bring back gold. Yeah.
On the treasure mechanic in this set, just about all of the treasure generators do create tapped treasures in this set too, which definitely a plus balance wise. A big fan of that. So with the ascend, descend parallels and the descending mechanic, there is definitely some confusion there, just in terms of both the parallels and in the naming terms for these. Have you descended versus do you have descend? Is that going to be a nightmare during play? For those of you that have played this set, I know that there are a couple of you that do have this and have played this set. Has that come up in games? Is this something that is going to be confusing? Yeah, Veggie.
Look, it two things very easy to keep track of. Two different things. At least there's not like a third descent-based keyword in the set that would add more confusion to it, you know. But luckily there's only two, just descend and descended, and no other thing that I could fathom that would make this more confusing.
Completely unfathomable.
Right.
Oh, Zab, how about you? You said that you've got the precons there. Have you played with descending?
No.
But Veggie, to your point, we have fathomless in this as well. So how can this how can we tell the difference between all of these?
I do look at it this way. If the cards were identical, but you just removed the fact that descent was a keyword and that fathomless descent was a keyword, would it be any more or less confusing? And I don't think so. I think, like, yes, some similar words are used on cards, but generally they lay out exactly what they do. There aren't many instances where you don't have like the reminder text, and also like the fathomless descent. Like, I do joke. Those especially are like, they're not really confusing. It's just they've tacked on this Fathomless Descent little text on there, but then like the card just reads like a normal card.
Right. The Fathomless Descent almost reads like the flavor on the D&D cards,
Right.
as opposed to like the actual name of a mechanic, just to tie it in with the whole descending theme too. But yeah, I mean, the three of them essentially using the same word across all three of them, but doing basically different things. I'd imagine that this is going to be a pretty complex pre-release weekend for everybody. Who is planning on attending a pre-release or doing a pre-release coming up? I know I definitely am. Yeah. Oh, not everybody's going to, but I know that some of us are going to be playing in the arena early access too and doing some draft as well. So definitely looking forward to that. So lots of experience with these keywords by the time next week rolls around. That's for sure. Speaking of keywords, though, we have another keyword or another mechanic in this set. We also have crafting in this set.
Ooh, my favorite.
How do we feel about crafting? Does this evoke the whole Minecraft feeling that it almost feels like they're making direct references to in a lot of these cards? There's a diamond pickaxe in the set, there's crafting in the set, you're digging deep into the earth's core here. Is this the kind of mechanic that they hope it would be evocative of? Clay, how do you feel?
Is that what they were trying to evoke? Because I know that I don't have like Minecraft context, so like if that's what they were shooting for, it would just go over my head. I thought this was just like archaeological, and the fact that like they have this culture that like makes clay fired bricks and like does all of this stuff, right? Like I thought that we were just doing that. If it was intentionally Minecraft, right over the head.
You're telling me Clay fired this brick?
Every single one of them. That's great. That's a great. I really am excited and interested to see how crafting plays out, especially in limited. It feels like a very cool what's the word I'm looking for? Like way to power up cards in the late game of limited when things like stall out and it costing having to exile cards to do things to get benefits, to like a mana sink. I like it. I'm interested to see them giving us something that doesn't look like, oh, this 2-drop, you pay 7 and your creatures get +1/+1, and like this is how we're gonna like try to force through board stalls and stuff. I just, it feels like an interesting way to try to solve when limited bogs down. And if it doesn't end up playing like that, that's fine. I would rather them do new or weird, like different stuff.
Right. Veggie looks like you had a visceral reaction to that one there.
I think I think it's my least favorite kind of mechanic because it looks very cool and fun, but it is almost always very overcosted, and it's sorcery speed, and they're on artifacts, and a braid is a common in this set. I think people are gonna get wrecked trying to lean into craft, like especially in limited, and it's gonna feel awful. I hope I'm wrong, but like it feels so disruptible, and like the cost is just huge, and the fact that you have like you have a common that just ruins every single one of them at instant speed. I'm sad already for it, but hope I'm wrong.
I definitely like understand that fear. I do like that it also lets you get from the graveyard. I think helps, but I think it's interesting that like that they would include common level artifact destruction in an artifact celebrated set.
Right. And not even just artifact removal, like this is already premium removal.
Yeah.
If it was just deal 3 damage to a creature. So nobody is like everybody
a break.
running this. Everybody will run this, and then they'll just have the artifact removal.
Absolutely. I mean, Lightning Strike is an all-star in a lot of limited formats, and this is Lightning Strike Plus. So naturally a good include, and you'll see each one of these stacked up in priority. Zabracus, how do you feel about the crafting mechanic here? Do you like it? Do you like it on paper? How do you think it'll play out?
So first of all, I just want to point out that the first crafting card that you had was one of my preview cards, so I love that. And I don't know, it's gonna be fun. I do think it'll be better for a lot of late game, especially in limited stuff. But I mostly play constructed, so I'm curious how well some of these are going to work in constructed, especially like multiplayer formats. Maybe it'll be easier to construct since there's often lots of removal going on, or maybe it'll be harder because your stuff will get removed before you can even craft. But in general, I think it's a fun new mechanic that I cannot.
It's all right. It's all right.
Mechanic. Chematic. It's just a chematic now. That's a thing now. It'll just be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. Misha, how do you feel about craft as a mechanic and crafting as a mechanic?
I pretty much agree with everyone else. I think that it can be a good late game mana sink if it doesn't get abraded as you're sinking the mana in. Also, Zabracus brought up a good point about, in a constructed format, like, for example, clay-fired bricks, that has a good ETB effect. You ramp for 2. Well, not necessarily ramp, but just get basics for 2, gain some life. And honestly, I would probably bargain away. I don't want to pay 7 and clear out my graveyard. But I will bargain it and get those benefits. So
yeah,
I think it could play well with some of the other constructed cards in especially standard right now. And yeah, I'm very interested to just see how it plays. Do you know if craft is specifically in like certain colors? Is it more of like a Boros mechanic, or?
I believe we get craft in all colors, or at very least, I've seen it in blue and white more heavily than some of the others, but there's a few in each color.
Okay, green and black only have 2.
It's
That would
in
make
all of
sense since that
them.
would be kind of taking away from some of your descending targets.
Yeah.
So.
And I think that is a fantastic point. And what I think this is more about in this is that this is an enabler for descend or a hindrance to descend, because this is a way to get permanents into your graveyard to help you descend or be descended, but also it can remove things out of your graveyard to knock you off of descend too. So I think that in a vacuum, I'm not a huge fan of the mechanic. Some of the cards that the mechanic is on are great. There's the blue well. Sorry, Chris, I'm going to make you work for this one. That has it that I really like because these are all on artifacts. They're blinkable and their ETBs can be doubled and can be exploited. And some of them on their front sides are perfectly fine. But there's the downside of sacrificing other artifacts or sacrificing other permanents. That's not necessarily going to be a big payoff in things like Commander as a format. In limited, though, with the other sets mechanics, I can see this working really well as a, do you want to exile permanent cards from your graveyard to do this? Do you want to sacrifice permanents to enable your other mechanics? Honestly, I can see why it's in this set, and I like that dynamic. Veggie, you had something to add too.
I will say that like there are a few cards that like really tickle my brain, that like where the cards that are used for the craft are like very involved in what you get out of it, like the flip side. And I'm like, that what I think the flaws are in it aside, that does seem very flavorful, very fun, and like something that at some point I want to pull off the like be able to make this the perfect thing. But there are like a bunch of them that don't care about the things that you've crafted with, and that that makes me sad.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I might be mistaken about the mechanic. I thought it exiles either from your graveyard or sacrifices artifacts in play. I might be wrong about that. My bad.
It I thought it did also. Yes.
So
it's permanents you control or in your graveyard.
Oh, but
But
it's
you do
always
exile them.
Oh, but it's always exile. All right, so it doesn't fuel descend. Okay, interesting. All right, but it can take you off of descend too. So still relevant. But anyway, Veggie, to your point, I think that this is a mechanic that's very much like Mech Titan Core, but on multiple permanents, right? It's one of those fun things to actually pull off. There is the one that that makes you exile a dinosaur, a pirate, a merfolk, and a vampire to give you what is essentially Davy Jones, the lost pirate. And sorry, I'm terrible on names here, so Chris.
Throne of the Grim Captain.
There you go, Throne of the Grim Captain. Thanks, Clay, for the
yeah.
assist on that one. But that's definitely one that you're going to have people build commander decks around just for the thrill of being able to pull off the flip on this one. And I love to see it. It's those kind of achievement cards or those decks that are built around an achievement like that I really like to see. And I can see that being the real upside of this mechanic here. All right. Now, we're also seeing the return of exploring in this set too. And from what I've seen of the precons from this set, exploring continues to be very, very strong. Do we feel that from the main set, not just the commander decks, that this is going to continue to be probably one of the better mechanics in the set? How do we feel about this? Because we've seen exploring in the past, and now we're seeing map tokens that allow you to select creatures to explore. You're seeing things that make each creature you control explore. Is this a natural evolution of this mechanic? And do we feel good about this? Misha, how do you feel about exploring overall?
There's just so much upside. It's you can get a land, it's a scry or a surveil if you want it. It's a pump. Like, what doesn't it do? Like, that's a really strong mechanic. I'm interested to see how it plays. If it's how much advantage. I mean, Simic always wants advantage, but how much is it going to actually make for the Simic cards that I've been seeing it on? Because I think that's a lot in the Merfolk decks and a lot of the. I'm not sure how it's dispersed among all other colors, but I think it's a lot of the Simic ones.
Yeah, this is primarily the blue-green Merfolk mechanic in the set, and the entire precon is built around this mechanic as well, which, again, from all of the great ambassador content I've seen out there so far, seems very, very strong. Zabracus, how do you feel about exploring? Strong, great to see it return. Did they overdo it on how much we're seeing? Please.
I like it. I'm looking at some of the cards right now, and it's just so much fun. First of all, it is a card that is a way to get around draw mechanics. So, you're not going to take that 2 damage from Shieldred by exploring and getting something into your hand. So that's always nice. And just the flavor of some of the explorer mechanic is great. Like Francisco the Foul Marauder, the little bird pirate, that whenever one or more pirates you control deals damage to a player, like it explores. It's so fun.
Yeah,
and they're just.
I definitely like it as well.
It.
And the +1/+1 counter synergies that it enables too, absolutely fantastic.
Oh yeah.
All right, Veggie, how do you feel about exploring?
I mean, was already good before, and it's it's good in multiple formats. Like totally works in Commander. Was good in Standard. And there are other formats, I'm sure, but like you just looking at some of the cards, like you have like the Merfolk for 1 that explores, like that's fantastic. And I would assume we'll see some play in constructed formats. There's the one for like 1 in X and just explore X. And that seems that like those I think have big potential for constructed stuff. And then like with the map tokens, I remember back for Innistrad when we saw blood tokens, and it feels like that where people were like, oh, all right, I guess they're okay, like discard and draw, all right. And then it turns out, oh, these are really good on all levels, just to smooth out your gameplay, and then see plenty of constructed play. So I think map tokens are like maybe better, and are going to see that much play, if not more.
Yeah, fantastic points. Absolutely fantastic points. Clay, how do you feel about Explorer's return here?
So I'm a little bummed that it's so heavily Merfolk flavored. Specifically because I have a pet deck that I have been playing since Ixalan on Arena, that has been migrated. Now it's an Explorer that is Abzan and focuses around Wildgrowth Walker, and then Command the Dreadhorde. So you're just exploring you're exploring everything, filling your graveyard, reanimate everything. Wildgrowth Walker pops off. You've got Luminous Broodmoth now, so that if the things die, they come back, they get to explore again. So I was, I think I tweeted about it before preview started. I was like, I'm hoping, like, give us some really, really cool. And Veggie shouted out both of the Merfolk that I'm really excited about. The Sea-Note Scout being the first 1-drop explore creature was going to allow like just that much faster of a curve. The Jadelight Spelunker is phenomenal for that. Just X and green, and you get to explore X times. It's Jadelight Ranger, but on fire. I think Explorer is a fantastic mechanic. I love playing it. I hate when it ducks my Smothering Tithe, like Zabracus was said, like missing that draw keyword there. But I think it's cool. I always enjoy seeing it in games, and I think that was probably the best part about the original Ixalan, mechanically speaking. Also, Amalia, I do just phenomenal. Again, I'm in Abzan, so having a legendary 2-drop that can wipe the board and just win the game, super sweet.
Yeah.
With Wildgrowth Walker, actually, that's why I almost forgot. That's why I brought her up, is because together, that's just like a turn 3 win.
Yeah,
super cool.
Amazing. Veggie.
That was my entire. I'm like yes, Abzan, explore. You ate, like that's, yeah. With Amalia, that's very fun.
Yeah, for sure. I think Amalia is one of the better cards in the set, and we'll get to some of our favorite cards in the set in a moment. But on the Explorer path, I'm a huge fan of the map tokens. I like anything that makes artifact tokens. I'm a big fan of it. Anything that gives me more artifact synergies with them entering the battlefield and being able to pick and choose which of your creatures explores is very powerful too, because there are a lot of creatures that care about getting +1/+1 counters on them, but don't necessarily have ways to put counters on themselves. Things like choosing a creature to explore or popping a map token and having a specific creature explore does do a lot in terms of constructed formats like Commander. So those are all things that I'm hoping that we see more of, and I'm hoping that map tokens are something that we see across multiple sets, and this isn't just a one-off, because I think it's very interesting. Explore is a great mechanic on its own. being able to pick and choose what explores or how it explores, I think is great too. All right, Misha.
Specifically about the map tokens, I knew what exploring was, but I had to actually look up map tokens a little bit earlier since I haven't, done any play of the set yet. And I was reading that you can actually pick a creature that's not on the battlefield to explore. Like it can be in the graveyard. At least it says if a creature that's no longer on the battlefield is instructed to explore, it can, as long as the spell or ability doing that resolves. So with map tokens, I thought that was really interesting because a lot of the explore cards have it written on them, so they just explore as the ETB. But with map tokens, it seems as if that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, this is the case where if you choose a creature to explore and then that creature is removed, it still explores. That's why it's worded that way. So it is really interesting. Is essentially you still get the activation even if the creature is destroyed in response. So you might not get the +1/+1 counter, but you still get that peak at the top of your library. So yeah, that is very interesting that this isn't a countered on resolution kind of thing. So great that it is working around that. Very interesting. Very interesting. All right. So we I touched on how much I like artifact tokens and map tokens in particular, but we're getting a lot of artifact tokens and a lot of different artifact tokens. Veggie, you talked about blood that came out of Innistrad. We are seeing, of course, clues and food and treasures, and we're getting junk tokens that are coming with the Fallout set as well. Are we just oversaturated on these artifact tokens? Is it too much, or is it okay that we're making these kind of temporary things? And does it seem like they're really tempering them now that they cost mana, are only able to be done at sorcery speed, etc., etc.? From a balance standpoint, do you think that this works, or have we had enough with artifact tokens? Clay, how do you feel?
I dig it, actually. I think that giving, it allows them to provide, a little bit of extra flavor to different places as we go. It allows them to fit, kind of niche needs for different sets. And by diversifying it, it, prevents, I think, the treasure fugue state that happened for a lot of Magic players, where it was like, what is the token? It's going to be treasure because that's what we have. So now that as you have more things, it kind of diversifies it out. It keeps something from taking over. And given that how many different types of creature tokens we can have, it feels more reasonable to have multiple different types of artifact tokens. Similarly, I really like the rolls that we had, and I would like to see more enchantment style tokens, and I don't know what those look like, but continuing to diversify those out as well, I think works well. And as long as we don't get an Academy manufactor for the other 3 artifact type tokens, then we're in good hands.
No,
sorry, that's a little personal shot.
Yeah, no, that is my dream. I tweeted about that recently, but yeah, give me an Academy manufactor for 3 different weird kinds of artifact tokens. I want to see that.
Tago's rock tokens, and
rock, junk, and map tokens are the next one. Sure, let's see that. Veggie, you had some thoughts.
So I really like what they do for an individual set and for different mechanics. But when you're adding another artifact token to the greater game, it's one specific thing that keeps getting constant juice is artifact synergies and things like that. And I also really liked Eldraine's roll tokens. I thought this was fantastic, and what is stopping maps, or at least what is stopping them from this also being an enchantment token? I think you would maybe have the flavor would be slightly different, but why couldn't it have been an enchantment token that you pay 1 and sack to explore? I want to see some of these things. I want to see some of these things be spread out to different card types. Of course, the problem is they probably just break a bunch of things. Like what if this had been land tokens?
Yeah.
Like that certainly breaks so many things, but that would have been really cool. Like it makes sense for an explore mechanic, but you know, like lands that don't tap for something, that, you know, don't tap for mana, but it is a land token. It just feels like how did they get out of the trap of these things always having to be an artifact?
Yeah, I agree. I like seeing them as permanents, but do they always need to be artifacts is a big question. I think in the case of maps, it kind of makes sense that they're artifacts since they're like literally tangible physical things. But for a lot of them, do they need to be artifacts? Probably not.
If they flavored the maps as like the glyphs, where it's like been enchanted, right? Is that like a just, you know, theoretical going forward? Is that something that you could buy flavor wise as an enchantment token?
Right. If it were like a glyph instead, I could see that being an enchantment rather than an artifact token.
Kind of like runes, right?
Yeah.
Rune enchantments.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. Zabracus, how do you feel? Are we getting oversaturated with these artifact tokens?
I don't mind them, but I also don't like. I don't mind them because I love the flavor that they add, and I'm not constantly playing a ton of different artifact type decks at the same time, and so I never feel like I'm being overwhelmed by artifacts, but clearly I haven't played against enough artifact decks.
I'll help with that.
But for me, I'm all about like the flavor of something, and like just the flavor of these map tokens for Amelia the Explorer and everyone. I love it. And same thing with blood tokens that we had in Innistrad, that it just fits everything so well, and I am all about aesthetics and things working together synergistically like that. And so I like it simply because of the flavor alone. I like it when I can do extra things that I wouldn't normally be able to do otherwise with just a static card. But I mean, yeah, there are becoming a lot of tokens.
Yes.
So we'll see if my opinion changes the more and more and more that we get.
Mhm.
But for now, I like it.
Yeah, let's see if the next couple of sets introduce some more artifact tokens too. Veggie.
This is probably too much of a tangent, but like, also wait a minute, why is blood an artifact?
Right.
Like that could have been like, come on, that's you could make just as much, if more, argument for that being an enchantment, but that's off topic.
It's like the actual name is Vile, right?
Yeah.
And then in parentheses of blood, like the artifact is Vile.
Right, but otherwise, like, yeah, would blood be an enchantment token as
It'd be
well?
food. What are you talking about?
Yeah, artifact token blood food. Yeah, absolutely. We'll see that coming up soon. Misha, how do you feel about this kind of saturation of artifact tokens that we're seeing from a mechanical standpoint?
I definitely think there's a lot. Just thinking of like the last how many sets, you know, blood, power stones, obviously we have treasures, maps. There's
Forgot about
so
power
many
stones.
different artifacts and tokens that I can just think of. It's almost like a new one for every set they're making right now. Do we think Affinity is ever going to make a comeback? Because it's so easy now.
Yeah, no, I think Affinity is a 10 on the Storm scale, where they aren't bringing that back anytime soon.
Probably not.
But to your point, I mean, like I am famous for exploiting this as a mechanic as well, and having the multitudes of artifact tokens entering the battlefield is something that you can take advantage of. And the fact that they just keep giving us more and more and more artifact tokens here, we are going to reach this this saturation point, this this when is too much point. Right. So we are about to get into talking about some of our favorites next, some of our favorite arts, some of our favorite cards. So panel, let's queue up some of our favorites here. But audience, I do want to remind you one last time as we are going to wrap up, two things. One, we are still taking donations. We are at $390 donated for the night. Thank you all very much, but you still have a chance to donate and enter for the raffle at the end of our roundtable. Head to the donate link, command donate in chat, and donate in $5 increments for your chance to be entered to win our prize pack, our Infinite Tokens prize pack, as well as our Lost Caverns of Ixalan commander decks as well. We're currently giving away 2 commander decks. So please enter. Your time is running out. We will do the stream at 10 o'clock, we will do the draw at 10 o'clock at the end of the stream. And then lastly, once we get done with our favorites, we are going to get into our Q&A too. I know that we've got a few questions here tonight, but if you've got anything to ask of our panel, please redeem the ask a question function in chat and we will answer your questions. All right. With that being said, let's rant and rave about some of our favorite cards from this set. There's a lot of really cool stuff that we're seeing and a lot of cards that we've already talked about, but a few that we haven't. And I want to make sure that we get a chance to talk about, first of all, our favorite art in the set. Does anybody have any cards that stand out to them as their favorite art in the set? Veggie, looks like you got one off the top.
The Quintorius Showcase. Love that art.
Yeah.
Love that art.
Yes.
Just so like vibrant, and it feels like it's just like he's just coming right out of the card at you. And not that one. No, the other one. The other one.
The one of the 3 different treatments for this card.
It's like a Prismacolor.
Yeah. That
there
one.
You go.
That one. Like what?
Yeah.
What an iconic piece of art for, to give you the feel of this set and of this world. Like, oh,
absolutely. Yeah, I think that this is a great one as well. And I think that a lot of the showcases really knocked it out of the park in this set too. But yeah, this was one of the first cards that one of the first arts that they showed us from the set as well. And what a way to kick it off, because absolutely it's one of the most stunning pieces for sure. Misha, any of your favorite arts?
I really like the Bloodletter of Aquazotz. That one is, it's also just got a really pretty art to it. It's a black card. I love playing black. So that one, I love it. And it's a vampire demon.
Yeah. A lot of vampire demons this set. Very cool to see. Love that look for sure. Zap, you had a favorite art in the set too.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out how amazing the full art basic lands are. Like just the style of them is so different than like any other basic land we've had, and I love it. Like it's like a movie poster. It also gives me I don't know why, but they always make me think of Avatar: The Last Airbender for some reason, and that just makes me happy too. But I love them.
Yeah. These ones really look like travel posters, like those old like visit location posters on them. And I always say that I like my basic lands to look as little like Magic cards as possible. And these ones do it for me. Like I love these. Like everything else looks like a Magic card on the battlefield. Great. I want my lands to look like something out of a different game entirely. And these ones are like these are posters that are on the board, and I love them. I'm a huge fan of these two.
I especially appreciate, like, it's very apparent in the plains and the forest, but I get the feeling that this was a prompt for all of them, is just the depth that you can see like into this like into the landscape. Like you can see so far, and like there are distinct details, like just all the way back to I can't say the horizon because it's, you know, underground, but like just how much you can see.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I love the fact that you've got very clearly foreground, middle ground, background on these, and it does give that
Mhm.
depth. And again, one of the reasons why to me it evokes those like travel posters or movie posters, because it gives you a sense of scale to them. And for a lot of lands, we lack that scale. We're looking at something from a perspective of somebody standing on the ground for a lot of land cards, or we're from the perspective of somebody looking at something far away. This is like drone footage, or we're on the ground looking up at something, and it's just the majesty of this. I think that these are absolutely incredible pieces. This is coming from somebody who was a landscape photographer for a while, so I love to see this kind of thing. Clay, how about you? Any favorite arts from the set?
All of them. No. So like I loved everybody shouted out the showcase arts. I think that this is I keep saying it every single roundtable, but I think that this set's showcase and alternate art styles are just mind-blowingly cool. All of the legends with theirs are awesome. But I specifically want to shout out the O'Hare Caslem. Both treatments are phenomenal, but the normal Ryan Pancoast one is probably one of my all-time favorite Magic arts now. Like I think that the showcase is incredible with that like signet style, but the front side and then the back side of this card, with the monarch butterflies going up the stairs of the temple, is just one of the coolest pieces that I've ever seen in Magic. And like I want this as art on my wall. Like I want it in my deck too, but like I just want this piece on my wall. It's just gorgeous.
For sure. I think that there's just a ton of really great art out of this set. I really like the creature land arts in the set too, especially the showcase, or the alternate treatments on the creature lands, where for the llama one you get an overhead of the farmland and it's shaped like a llama, or
Mhm.
for the shark one you're looking at it and you can see like the silhouette of the teeth in the distance. Like those are my favorite. There is Restless Prairie. But these are my favorite, where it's like an implied creature in the
Yeah.
land, and you get that from some of the other creature lands as well. I like that they've kept that here too.
I love that the Restless Reef that does the shark is the like hull of a ship, right? So it's the what's forming the teeth is a shipwreck in the distance. That's such a neat way to portray that.
Yeah. I absolutely love these creature lands, and the way that they've like again implied the creature in the landscape. I think it's fantastic. Another great job here.
Yeah.
All right. So, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, just one more, just to throw it up there, because I just think this is Bringer of the Last Gift.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I don't know why, because Magic has expanded the breadth of their art so drastically, but something about this art just crosses a line in a good way for me. I'm like, this feels like a very different. It feels like a very different game, and I don't know what it is about it, but I like it, and it's like I don't know why that is the thing where I'm like, this is so different, but yeah.
Clay.
I think that the showcase for Bartolome does the same thing for me, even standing out from the other showcases, that there's something about the texturing of like the sleeves, the face, the cloth that he's holding. Like when I first saw that, I was like, this doesn't feel like I'm looking at, even in the world of like a million styles of showcase and stuff now, I was like, this doesn't feel like Magic art. This doesn't feel like a trading game art. Like there was something really jarring about it, and still when I look at it, I still get that feeling, and it's just so cool, and I cannot wait to see it in person, because I just know it's going to be awesome.
Misha.
If we're talking about arts that don't make you think it's magic, I would say the Huatley Poet of Unity. Like that one, it just looks like not necessarily watercolor, but just the way that one did it for me.
Oh yeah. And there are a few showcases in this style too. I know that there are a lot of dinosaurs that are in this style as well, and I think it is wild. And yeah, definitely a distinct art style for Magic. You see this on a table, and you'd think for a second, wait, did you bring a card from a different game here, or like, is this a proxy? Because yeah, you don't see this art style anywhere else.
Yeah, Tishana's Tidebinder as well. Accomplishes that same kind of style, and then it reminds me of the Secret Lair that they just recently did with the elementals. So there's the Risen Reef. Which
of course, you like the Risen Reef. Of course.
I always have to shout out Risen Reef, but there's that style of, and I think the Omnath as well, that like you could show up to a Magic event with a deck in this, and it would just be so jarring.
Yeah, absolutely. The art styles that they're experimenting with, I think, overall is good for the game. We're seeing different styles. We're seeing different arts. We're seeing more vibrant arts as well, especially because we've passed through a few years in recent memory where a lot of the art was just very samey, was very washed out, almost to the point where it was hard to distinguish cards from the other side of the table. But now everything is so vibrant and so distinct and so different. In some cases, in terms of the secret layers, difficult to read, but definitely not difficult to identify by these arts. Overall, I think very, very healthy for the game overall. So we've talked about some of our favorite arts, some of our favorite treatments, some of our favorite styles. How about mechanically? Some of our favorite cards. What are we looking forward to playing with? What are we actually looking forward to interacting with? Or for us Commander players, what are we looking to build around too? Is there anything that is sparking joy card-wise in the set? Misha, it looked like you had some thoughts right away.
I have two cards that I am extremely excited about. The first one is Sovereign Okinek Ahau, the cat card. Like, I have my Selesnya cat deck is one of my favorites, and it's all about giving them buffs that aren't counters. So what goes well with that? Giving them the counters to make the buffs bigger. Like, I am so excited for this kitty cat.
When I first saw this card, it was one of those, I'm sorry that happened to you, or I'm happy for you, but I'm not reading that because I could not parse this at first. There was no way I was understanding what was actually going on with this card, but it looks fantastic, and yeah, I can understand how with somebody with a cat deck like this would definitely be a big impact. What was your second one?
My second one is Itzquinth, Firstborn of Gishath. Just getting to pay 2 and have dino fights, like, yes. I'm so excited for this little guy.
Yeah, Gishath's little baby here, definitely a cute one for sure. I know that this one is in the dinosaur precon as well as in the main set. So those of you that have played with the precon might see how much of a terror this little guy is so far. But yeah, I think that this one, just seeing the baby at the feet of Gishath here is very cute in the art too. Oh, fantastic. Zabracus, how about any favorites from you? Any cards you're looking forward to playing, building around?
Sorry, it's cutting out for me.
Oh, no problem.
Hang on.
We'll come back to you for a second then.
Okay, I think it's back.
Oh, great. If you can hear me,
Sorry.
I was asking
Yeah.
any cards you're looking forward to, anything that you want to play with, build around.
There are so many cards I am very excited about in this set. There's like at least 3 or 4 vampires that I want to add to my Edgar Markov deck. I am super excited for Bloodletter of Aklazats because my Edgar deck is all about like life gain, life loss combos, and so that just love it. And then Master of the Dark Rites, I think, is just a really fun and interesting, super cheap but mana rampy creature that will just love it. And it doesn't even have to be a vampire stuff that it pops off with. And then the new Vito, Fanatic of Aclazotz, is also fantastic. I believe he's the one where if you attack with a vampire or something. Nope, this is a different one. Okay, yep, I've already forgotten what he does, but I love him. Yeah, no, wait, no, yeah, this is the one that you get a 4/3 white black vampire demon creature token. Yeah, like I love it. Creating more evil tokens by doing very simple things, and they lose life. Like, just the flavor for vampires makes me so happy. And then just really quickly, I'm also super excited about the new Galta. Because the next deck I'm planning on making is, I believe, Atla. And so just dinos in general, just crazy. I'm terrified for the Galta to be used against me. Especially if, like, there's an Atali following it. The new Atali from March of the Machines.
I'm familiar.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I love playing that card. I hate when it's played against me. And then finally, I've listed so many cards, but I'm super excited about just the super basic Get Lost removal card, where you can just easily destroy a creature, enchantment, or planeswalker, and then they just get a map token. So I feel like it's a better version of what's that? I can think of the artwork. It was in a Crimson Vow. Soren just is on the artwork. It's a white and it's a better version of that. Why can I not remember what it's called? Destroy a target creature or planeswalker, create a clue token.
Yeah, no, I know which one you're talking about as well.
It's like, I know it's on the top of my head.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, the art is like Soren looking into the empty coffin.
Yes, yeah. So I feel like this is like
they
cost
Fateful
the same rarity. Yes, that. Yeah. But this is like a much better version of that.
Yeah.
I feel like giving someone a map token versus giving them a clue token is so much worse for them, but better for me.
Yeah, I think that's great as well. I think that's going to definitely be premium removal. And for anybody that plays something like Generous Gift or the new Stroke of Midnight in any decks, Get Lost is a great addition there too, because I'd much rather give somebody a map token than like a 3/3 or even a 1/1 in a lot of cases. So great call on that one. You mentioned Master of Dark Rites, though. I have a lot of words to say about this in an upcoming video. I think Master of Dark Rites is a very, very good card. Very, very good card. And I think that a lot of people should definitely be playing this one. I can't believe that they've printed a Dark Ritual this cheap. Like, this is an absolutely I can go on and on about it. It is an incredible card. It enables a whole bunch of strategies. It goes in a lot of decks. This is one that's going to be in demand for sure. All right, so thank you for some of your favorite cards. Veggie, how about some of your favorite cards from the set?
I mean, Millennium Calendar is right up my alley.
Yes.
And I'm so happy that they did not make it an upkeep trigger to win, because so many of these have been just kneecapped by that upkeep trigger, because it's like, okay, everybody knows to just hold one thing to remove it, wait till you're one counter away, and then that's sad. You can't you have to do some really wacky things to actually make it usable, and this is still very, very hard to pull off, but it doesn't have that same problem. Like, you're able to use it to win when you get the thing. You don't have to wait for it. And that just so many other weird little interactions. I like that they made it time counters so that you can so it can interact with like the Doctor Who stuff. Something all will be one. Like there's a lot of very fun things that I think you can do with this. That's I'm gonna try and jam that in some stuff and see how it plays.
Yeah, big fan of Millennium Calendar myself. It is one of those very much me build around trying to get all of the counters on this. And when it was first revealed, I immediately started brewing for it, and All Will Be One was one of those. This is almost too easy. Like just like pop somebody before getting to the 1,000 counters. So I wanted a completely different route, and now I want to turn Millennium Calendar into a creature and put Luxior, Giada's Gift, on it. So it gets +X where X is the number of counters on it. So you can just swing with the calendar as like a 300 creature. That's what I want to do with that.
Oh my gosh.
Swinging calendars, I like it.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the kind
That's
of goofy stuff. That's
amazing.
something that says when there's 1,000 counters on this, do something. You say each opponent loses 1,000 life, and I am there. I am looking at that card.
I like cards that say things that no other card says, and that certainly qualifies.
Absolutely. Any other favorites?
I mean, I'm happy to see Merfolk back. That's like a big, like very much my play style, and I'm hoping that means that I can play them in some constructed formats. So like Deep Root Pilgrimage is a real good card. Is a real good card. And like I don't know much about like Modern, but I might have to start playing that to ease my my like competitive 60 card need. And I know that Merfolk exist somewhere in that format, and this seems like a way to bump them up a little bit. Plus, it also has like that extra factor of like, okay, it's a very solid card by itself, but there's some shenanigans to be done with this. Like, there's certainly some sort of weird combo that you could do for Infinite Merfolk, and yeah, it hits the spot.
Intruder Alarm.
Yeah.
Any other favorites? Anything else?
I think my build around, although I'm a little sad with the colors, would be Titsine, the gnome champion.
Oh yeah.
Because like again, I like cards that say things that no other cards say, and especially the back side of this, like being able to just transform stuff. Being like that's weird and can be powerful. I wish there were some other colors in that identity to be able to play around with, but that seems like build it now, and like there's always going to be some other things that are transforming as time goes on, and something will I'll get like one or two things to add like here and there, so that I think it'll be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Some great picks. Definitely some fun stuff in this set. Clay, how about you? How about your favorites?
So I'm with Misha on Sovereign. I put together like 7 different lists in Moxfield as I kept changing my mind about like directions that I wanted to go. I'm really big on like right now just like a green-white Anthem style deck that's just going to continuously be pumping up the creatures, and then they'll grow again. Carmen, Cruel Sky Marcher. I haven't figured out exactly where I want to go with that yet. I've got like 5 different lists of like, how am I sacrificing all these permanents? Am I making my opponent sacrifice things? Am I getting value off of eggs? Like, there's just a bunch of different ways that you could take that style that's not necessarily vampires, even if I do just decide to go vampires. I haven't decided. Weta, Trainer Prodigy is another one that I am excited for, on making my Brash Taunter fight my Stuffy Doll, fight this. You know, if you have Naeth in there, you can have like Tajik will prevent non-combat damage, so my creatures can fight without killing each other. Or there's the enraged cephalodon or something, cacophodon.
Cacophedon. Yep, I was going to
enraged
say.
cacophodon, which is like, oh yeah, green tap, it fights Weta, it untaps Weta. Green tap. So if you have things that are caring about doing this stuff, you could get as many fights as you need. The Millennium Calendar, just like Veggie. Right now, the list I'm working on is Padine, Mono Blue. With the joke was the what have you brought to the science fair? And so it's all of the like blue theft spells, stealing other people's artifacts to go along with running the Millennium Calendar, untap tap, corridor monitor, and cards like that to just be silly with it while you're trying to get to 1,000 counters. I have no idea how unlikely that it will end up being. But if you pull it off once, that's all that you have to do.
Yep, absolutely. You dome each opponent for 1,000, and you can say job done.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, there are a lot of great cards in this set, and a lot of really cool build-arounds from this set. I really like Anam Pakal, the red-white gnome creating legend. I just wish that wasn't a Cathar's Crusade deck, is my only wish. But it is pretty much a necessity to be.
That's a pro to it, not a con.
No, I think any deck that needs to run Cathar's Crusade is a definite con. But there's also we haven't even talked about any of the Jurassic Park cards either that are coming with this too. I think there are a lot of winners there as well, and a lot of cool stuff to build around. I'm very excited to see some of the lists that people have submitted to me for the Indoraptor too, and looking forward to seeing some really cool stuff there. I'm very excited for this set. I'm sure we're all very excited for this set. But unfortunately, we have come to the end of our round table. We've got a couple of questions before we do our raffle and raid some friends. So we've got a few questions from the audience from top donor of the night, Crab Baskets. By the way, folks, we have raised over $400 tonight. Thank you all so much for giving generously. This has been amazing. We will do the raffle right after this, so you only have about 5 minutes or so to get those final donations in. So our first question from top donor of the night, Crab Baskets. What is your favorite new mechanic of the set? And we'll go new or returning mechanic of the set here. So do we have any favorite new or returning mechanics?
Explore. It's still the favorite.
Yeah, it seems pretty universal. I like seeing Enrage come back too. Always something that I like seeing new Enrage stuff.
Yeah, I think it's Explore for me.
Yeah, there you go. Knock it out of the park. Let's hope that we see more Explore out of other sets too. It really seems to be a popular mechanic. Maybe they make it deciduous. Right, so we see it come out of other sets too. And then another question is, how do you feel this set is for new players? Is this going to be friendly for new players? Is this going to be difficult? I know we talked about Descend and Descending being kind of difficult, but how do we feel the complexity is?
I wonder if this is going to be one of those sets that's more disruptive for enfranchised people, franchise players versus newer players, where like the mechanics, it's because there's like set expectations based off what Magic has looked like in the past, where like it's like if you ever try to pick up new card games or board games with Magic players, and then they start asking about like, oh, the interactions and like when do I respond, and it's like the game's mechanics aren't built for Magic brain, and they don't have established like rules for this and that. So I would be curious if it's like a the more enfranchised you are, the more you're like if it's more challenging to pick up because it kind of defies what we're expecting the way things should work. Because the card, it feels like the cards themselves aren't necessarily as complex as we've had recently, especially. It feels like in comparison to some of the most recent sets, it's not necessarily as complicated, but it's different. And I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know if that will actually play out. I'm excited to see that in the pre-release.
Absolutely. Veggie, look on your face says you think that it is pretty complex.
I think compared to other like standard sets, it's still pretty complex. Plus, and you have the like the descended, fathomless descent. You have this doesn't work with tokens. I mean, there's I don't know. I definitely don't feel like this is the like refreshing, more basic set design. So like I think it will be probably just as difficult for newer players, which is pretty high right now, I think.
Yeah, totally fair. Misha, how do you feel? Is this going to be welcoming for newer players?
I agree with Veggie. I think it's going to be kind of difficult. Even me, just reading through some of the mechanics, I'm like, wait a second, I need to reread that a few more times to make sure I understand what's going on. And also, I mean, people say reading the card explains the card, but there's a lot of words on a lot of these cards, and reading's hard sometimes. So it's just going to be a lot to digest. Wizards doesn't really make vanilla creatures too much anymore, do they?
No, fair point. Veggie, you had something to say to that.
And on top of that, this being a set that like mildly panders to the Minecraft crowd and also newer players with the Jurassic Park tie-in, then does make that a little bit worse. Like it like that those are things that are designed to bring in new players, and if you keep the complexity level the same as it's been, that's tough. You get people in the door, but then you, I don't know, hit them with the door. I didn't have a good analogy, but like you get what I'm saying.
Don't let the door hit you on the way in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Clay.
I do wonder on the flip side that the first Ixalan was widely panned because it was lower powered, and if you bring people in at a like simpler level, do they stay? How do you ramp them in if you start lower, simpler, right? Or do you just bring standard sets in general's complexity down to that, to you know what I mean, to like a more consistent level? I just remember a lot of people being frustrated with our first trip to Ixalan because of the fact that it was a step back compared to what we were doing at the time. And I don't know how you cater to the new audiences that you're trying to draw in without creating a just speed bump set that everybody who's already there isn't interested in or doesn't contribute to the overall economy or ecosystem rather.
Yeah. Misha, you had something to add?
I was going to say that that's kind of what the core sets used to be, right? That more simple, a little bit more entry friendly set. And I feel like we don't really get core sets too much now. Like what was it? The last one I think was supposed to be the D&D overlap, was supposed to be kind of like the core set at the time. And then it also had a bunch of mechanics and was still a little confusing.
Yeah, the core sets were also, like the last couple core sets were also similarly kind of just like, why are we doing this? That like there were some people who did enjoy them, but overall the feel that I got every time a core set would come out was this is a waste of a set from the enfranchised players, and I'm sure it was beneficial for a lot of new players. I know that we enjoyed them when we first started playing, but I feel like it's a really tricky rope to walk.
Mm-hmm.
I agree that it's a hard rope to walk, but they actually do it in this set with cards, because like I think complexity does often mean higher power, but higher power doesn't necessarily mean more complexity. Look at like we talked a lot about like Bloodletter of Aclazotz. That is a very simple, very easy to digest card, but it is strong and a card that a lot of people are excited about. If you look at like New Galta, very, very strong. A lot of people are excited about it, but very easy to understand and digest. I feel like if they wanted to, they could make a set that where the majority of the cards are simpler in design, but still match the power level that people that are in franchise want.
Yeah, I think that's a perfectly fair point. Zab, how do you feel?
So I was going to say, I think it really just depends on what format the new players are going to be playing, because certain formats are going to be a lot more difficult to grasp than others. Like if their intro into Magic is this set with the commander decks, for the most part, I think they're going to be okay. Because they're relatively straightforward in how they all work and synergize with each other. If their intro is draft, or a pre-release kit, I think they might struggle. But I mean, me, when I was a new player, if I read a card and I did not understand what that card is saying or how a mechanic works, I don't play those cards. I just play something else that's simpler to understand. And if a new player's first introduction to this set is on Arena, I think they'll have a lot easier time, because all these weird mechanics Arena is going to explain for them. And they'll actually probably end up understanding how they work better than a lot of other players. So I think it really just depends on what the new players are playing, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I think that that's a fantastic point. And one of the reasons why Wizards is okay with the complexity in their set design, because they are on-ramping players through Arena, which does hold their hand in terms of keeping track of mechanics, explaining mechanics, letting you know what you can and can't do. That really is how they're trying to get new players in, is through that. But we can see that if your first experience is in paper, then reading the card, explaining the card doesn't necessarily work, because we've all read these cards and are all still confused by them in a lot of cases. So, and that's us and franchise players too. All right. Great. Anything to add before we wrap up, folks? No? All right.
Wait.
Excellent. Well,
descend is like ascend, but the other...
If you've taken one thing away from this, I want you to know that descend and ascend. Oh, excellent. Well, let's send it around one more time to have everybody remind us of who you are and where we can find you. Then we'll do our raffle winners, and then we are going to raid Filthy MTG Casuals, Donnie and Jen. So do stick around as we send it over to those good folks. But Clay, why don't we start with you? Who are you and where can we find you?
Hi, friends. I'm Clay, or Claybee. I'm part of the C&C Power Hour. Are half of the hosts tonight for this roundtable. Whenever a new set comes out with Magic, we do one of these roundtables. We are lucky enough to have friends from the community come and join us each time, as we get to talk about the art, the flavor of the set, and how we feel like it's going to impact Commander. And we get to raise money every time for a good cause. And we couldn't do it without everybody who's here in chat. Chris and Andy, who are behind the scenes, not to mention this Chris, guest or panel moderator extraordinaire, and then our friends who come out and join us every time. So thank you very much to everybody who's here. If you want to follow me, my Twitter is below, at MTG_Claybee, where I talk about a lot of the decks and the new legendaries that are coming out and some of the ideas that I'm planning on taking those decks. So
amazing. Thank you for joining us as always, Clay. Zabracus, why don't you remind us, who are you and where can we find you?
Hi, hello. I am Zabracus. I am on all your favorite social media networks as Zabracus,
Sounds
except
like
YouTube. Wait, am I
muted?
cutting out again?
I can hear you.
I can hear.
Oh, okay. Just dropped out for me. No problem.
I think there was like a slight delay and she
Just
caught
you.
up.
That's just Chris. Okay.
I don't know what's going on with my internet. We'll start over. Hi, I'm Zabracus. You can find me on all of your favorite social medias as Zabracus, except on YouTube, where I am Zab's Nerd House. If you are ready to get your hands on some physical Ixalan cards, be sure to check out my Whatnot stream this Sunday. and I will have some available for you to sate your cardboard happiness. Otherwise, just follow me anywhere else on the internet. Yeah. And I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. We really do love having you out. We'll have to have you again around again sometime soon. Misha,
I would love to.
why don't you remind us who you are and where we can find you?
Hello, everyone. I am Magic Mishamigo over on pretty much all the socials. I stream sometimes. I cosplay. I love EDH. I love Limited. Just love Magic. Thank you so much for having me. This was an absolute blast, and I'm just so excited for this new set. I can't wait for this weekend.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us, Misha. And lastly, Veggie, why don't you remind us who you are and where we can find you?
Hi, I'm VeggieWagon. You can find me at most places at VeggieWagon. I'm also the co-host of your favorite Commander gameplay show, Decked Out. We just did an episode with these precons. If you want to see some gameplay of that, and we consistently have one of the first, if not the first, live gameplay video for each of the new sets. So it's worth following what we're doing. And you can probably find me doing some of this set stuff tomorrow for the streamer event. So yeah, that too.
Fantastic. Veggie, thank you for joining us. We look forward to having you back again sometime soon. And as always, folks, I am Chris, and I am your Commander Mechanic. Happy to be the host and moderator for these roundtables whenever we do them. Love getting to see everybody and chat the new set. And thanks, everybody, for coming out and donating. The moment that a lot of you have been waiting for, it is pronounced schooner. Schooner. The moment you have all been waiting for. It is schooner. Whether you are piloting it or drinking it, it is called a schooner. Anyway, winners for tonight's draw, tonight's raffle. The winner of the Infinitokens prize kit is Baron Pardy. Congratulations, Baron Pardy, on the Infinitokens prize kit. The first Lost Caverns of Ixalan commander deck goes to Crab Baskets. Thank you very much for your donation, Crab Baskets. And the second commander deck goes to Lightfoot. Lightfoot, thank you very much for your donation tonight. Absolutely amazing. Thank you, everybody. We have raised over $400 tonight during this roundtable. Thank you all so much. Thank you for being here. Do stick around, because we are right now going to go raid our friends Jen and Donnie, rather, at Filthy MTG Casuals. So please do give them all your love. And thank you, everybody. Take care.
I'm telling him you said that.
All right. Bye.